I've lived 1,000 lives. I've piloted 1,000 souls. I've killed and fought and died just for another role.
This is the Happy Jacks RPG podcast, a roundtable discussion that's a mix of friendship, humor, unbridled enthusiasm, and tabletop RPG topics sent in from around the world.
Just for another role.
Hello, and welcome to Season 35, Episode 2 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast for the very first time. My name is Kimmy.
I'm Kadave.
I'm Jason. I'm Joey.
And I'm Clara.
In today's episode, Nicholas from Stockholm shares his thoughts on 4 different play styles. Carlos from Detroit asks about TTRPGs and APs as folk art. And from the Archive 2017, Drail88 claims that D&D can be a 2-player game. Topic: give us your pitch. Tell us about your current favorite TTRPG and why it's your favorite. If you'd like to contribute a question or a story to the show, you can do that too. So email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. Or you can post on the mailbag channel of the Discord at happyjacks.org/Discord. Give us your pitch. Tell us your favorite TTRPG right now, why it's different than others. And then we'll start pulling those for future episodes as like specific topics and stuff like that. So boast about your favorite stuff to us. We'd love to hear it. All right, announcements. We will be at OrcCon 2025 at the LAX Hilton, February 14th through the 17th. Streaming live on Saturday, and we also have a bunch of hosts running games, including myself and Dave. If you want to sign up for those games, Dave, what are you running?
On Friday at 2 o'clock, I'm running The Walking Dead from Free League with their pre-gen characters from their starter pack. Like, gonna just do it as is in the box because I'm curious. I've never actually done one of those entirely with the pre-gen characters and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And Saturday at 2, I'm doing Electric State, where the players will get to make characters and play a game, and those characters and how they end up are going to be part of the future streamed Electric State game that I'm going to do here for everybody that's watching or listening.
Yeah. I'm running Virgins and Vixens on Saturday morning, and I will be at the As Seen on Happy Jack's booth in the dealer room, selling Decima, if you want to get that. And then there's also games from Stephanie Bryant, MythWorks, a bunch of different other creators too, for a little co-op that we have there. And I'll definitely probably be running things at Games on Demand at some point.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's just how it goes. So yeah, come join us. It's lots of fun. And if you're running games, tell us so that we can pitch your games too. And Indie Designer of the Month, we're holding off because we've only had 2 episodes in January, so it seems like not fair. So we're starting in February with a new Indie Designer of the Month, so stay tuned. All right, mailbag number 1. Who would like to read it? There's a lot of you, so you all have to read.
I did mailbag 3,
Okay.
so...
Can I popcorn it?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, gang. Here, have some content.
Woohoo!
You. What?
How did
My
you
favorite
know?
gift.
How did you know?
Also,
Content,
that was
yeah.
very, hi, gay. Like the Pride commercials.
I.
You do not know what I'm talking about?
I've.
Seen these commercials.
It's been a year. It's
It's
been a
been
long
about
year.
6 months since Pride began.
Comes around again.
We're not allowed in the same room anymore.
True.
What? Mom.
God.
I learned it from watching you.
Also true.
When I play, not to say GM, I always filter what's said and done through my own theater of the mind. Whatever actions the other people do, I try to fit them into my own personal narrative. I've found 4 recurring play styles that often clash. Most games that I'm in contain a mix of these, as any single player may flow in and out of them. They are 1. Realist. 2. Not playing the setting.
What?
They got me. 3. Munchkins. 4. Goofballs. I like this. Just jingled my brain. So, the realist. I personally lean hard into realism, knowing every little thing, every little item carried, the fear death above everything else, but spiders and public speaking. Wow, that's realism. And fear death above everything else. Except spiders and public speaking. There it is. My PC would drop everything if he thought it would better his chances of outrunning a threat, no matter what the rules say. Not playing the setting. One on and off player wanted high fantasy. We weren't playing high fantasy. He mainly achieved this through cheating, crossed out, bettering the odds. One striking example would be trying and succeeding to standing on horseback while galloping through enemy hordes, jumping from horseback onto the chieftain for an epic 1v1. I was just a tiny bit jealous. Popcorn to Joey.
Munchkins, playing the min-max game. Control a soulless mini with the sole ambition to win the game session with better gear than they started, even if it requires talking to get past the guard. I feel kind of called out. Goofballs. I've had players slipping into full comedy mode, breaking all emerging for a cheap laugh. This is the only one that is hard to justify, even if they succeed with their comedic endeavor. This brings us back to the topic. To make the narrative more cohesive, I do tidy up the events. If a player had to leave early and his character runs on autopilot for their remaining time, I'd make up a reason for this, dialogue and all. This is my headcanon, which I need not share with other players. An example would be the min-maxer making an ineffective character and losing the fight. He stopped playing, enjoying the game, wanted it to end so he could play something else, but my headcanon was that he was depressed from watching a close friend get killed. Is this a brilliant idea, old news that everyone does to some extent, or a terrible idea disguising it as a coping mechanism? Did I miss
That doesn't make it bad.
Right? Did I miss a fifth offended? Love to hear what you all have to say. Love you 3000. Nicholas from Stockholm.
Okay.
Okay.
First of all, a lot of people have tried to categorize gamers. Just in general, we see it a lot, and and I would love to distill this all into like a BuzzFeed style quiz that we can just put somewhere.
Yeah.
But I forget who wrote about it, but my brain said Maslow. That's not correct. But you have your explorers, your narrativists, your
Thespians.
No, yeah, I saw
you
the
know what
same
I'm
thing.
talking about.
Yeah.
Thank you. Explorers, narrativists, simulationists, and don't remember the last one. And it was about
Probably absurdist?
no.
No? Okay.
You're thinking of me, and that's also not true.
What's
I've never done anything wrong in my life.
It's a
I know
legitimate
this, and I love you.
theme.
The point is, I think this was mostly for like MMOs, but the idea is that like people have done this for a lot. So I really like when people come up with their own like delineations because you see what people value in what they're running. Also, sorry, that was the primary thing that I needed to say is that like this is good stuff because this is a thing that people have been trying to do when they study games.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that these are like specifically ones that cause issues though. It's not like, there's the ones that we all kind of want to be, and then these are the ones that tend to cause conflict either with each other or with the other players.
Yeah.
And I think it's a pretty good list for that. I don't know. I feel like this, I feel like we need to like drill in with goofball because I think there's moments when friends are at a table where like people get goofy, but then I've definitely played with people who are definitely not at this table right now, who it is about like the tension or the punchline for them, even at the expense of the story.
Yeah.
And not in a way that's like, hey, this is a joke my friends sitting with me are gonna get, and then we'll just jump back into it. It's like okay, this is like the vampire show, like What We Do in the Shadows. There's the one who's like the energy sucker.
Yeah.
And it's just like, and they just like vacuum all the energy and attention to themselves. And it like at the expense of everyone else at the table.
I'll say there's another side of that for me, particularly when I started streaming. I had a lot of trouble embracing the mood or the vibe of the moment. And when things got really serious, I might still crack a joke, right? And it was like figuring out the rhythm of like, okay, this is also a performance. We're all playing together. We're friends. Nobody gets paid at Happy Jacks, right? Like we're doing this because we love it. But I struggled with that of being goofball because I was uncomfortable leaning into, and I love the role-playing aspect of games, but playing in a home game, there was always the freedom to just bust up and whatever, and actually developing the discipline around remaining in character or just not shitting on someone else's scene, right? That I'm not even in, and they don't need my wisecracking, right? As much as everybody appreciates my humor at all times, at any moment.
This is true.
it took some learning to be able to get the fuck out of other people's way and also enjoy the tension in my own scenes that didn't come to me naturally. So there is that component of goofball that is, yes, there's part of it that's fun, but then also, why are we goofballing, right? And like maybe there's that level of discomfort or awkwardness.
There are 100% people in not just playing a game scenario that's how they deal with tension.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a thing. Like, I have known people that work in life or death jobs that in the worst of situations end up making a joke about somebody stepped in dog shit.
Yeah.
Like, because it happened. Like, and everybody's laughing about it because they're getting shot at.
Yeah.
You know, like, stuff like that. So, like, there are people where that's just a natural reaction, you know? Like, how most people that work in first responder jobs have black humor because they deal with this terrible business all the time. And I see that, you know, like I get it. But I also have worked very hard to let the uncomfortable stew,
Yeah.
right? Because that's also interesting and fun and cool. But as a person, it was weird for me to get used to the idea of like, oh no, let everybody have this moment of real awkwardness, right? Like, because it's interesting and that's what would happen here, you know? Makes sense.
It's like those are the moments I live for. I live for those moments. It's the actor in me. It's got to be like, I want that daytime Emmy moment. Not an Oscar, let's be real. Daytime Emmy. But for me, what I agree with Kara. I like that there's a list because I love putting these in lists. But for me, I don't know if I would put not playing the setting and goofballs in separate categories. At least for me, because I feel like those hit the same nerve for me.
The note I think you're feeling is it's not hitting the tone you're looking for. Because, like,
Yeah.
when you say not playing the setting, I think of, I'm going to say a LARP thing. Sorry.
I'm shocked. This is my surprise face.
No.
Just say it.
It's so like listen, I approve a lot of backstories for a LARP, and one of the things I always tell people when they're looking at our world is like, do not come in wanting to be Luke Skywalker. Come in fall in love with a set, like a piece of the culture in the game, and then build your character through that. And that's sort of a don't play. If you're not playing the setting, to me, that's what that is. Rather than, but like.
So you're saying we should be the guy with the ice cream maker in Cloud City?
Yes.
Okay, I'm in.
I love ice cream.
Yeah.
I love ice cream.
I have a question about this because part of it is, I think this doesn't qualify as not playing the setting, where if you're playing, like you're using Dungeons and Dragons and you want to play in the Expanse, right? But the whole table has said, yeah, we want to play in the world of the Expanse and we only know Dungeons and Dragons, so we're going to use that. I feel like that's still playing to the setting.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the like the example is actually not playing to the tone, because if we wanted to do a simulationist game where we're gonna fight, we're playing GURPS,
Right.
and I decide
Sorry.
Nailed it. No notes.
no notes, and you had to and you wanted to stab a ship. That one could physically do that, but it's not gonna do much. So I don't know why you'd do that. But let's say you're playing, I don't know, Changeling, and a ship shows up, and you feel the need to I don't remember the context of it either. The point is, if you're playing a high fantasy game, you can do that stuff, because we kind of all agreed in the tone of Changeling, that's the vibe. You can run Changeling gritty. They made a whole new system for it, but you can do it. So this example here kind of is giving me we didn't agree on tone, not setting, because you can do Dungeons and Dragons or The Expanse.
I've had it happen though, where you're running a high fantasy game, and someone's like, "Oh, I really wanted a gun,"
Right.
and something like that, and sure they're picturing muskety stuff, and I know there are some expansions and different people have built extra content that has that stuff. But to me, that's a very different vibe than what I pick up. When I think high fantasy, I don't think guns.
Behold my arquebus.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
love that shit. But yes.
yeah, I mean, and if you've agreed on that, that's fine. But there's a lot of times where there's things that are just slightly off, and you can have the same kind of setting idea, but if you're not really drilling down on that, because sci-fi. there's a huge range of sci-fi.
Sure.
Like, oh, what do you mean we can't teleport everywhere? If you're playing Traveler, where you have to actually fly that far and you have to make plans for that, like, that's very different than, we're playing, like, Star Trek or whatever, where you could just, like, warp speed, 9 and get there, and, like,
Yeah, so it sounds like we really just rename not playing the setting to not playing the tone or breaking tone.
But then goofball falls in there because it's breaking tone.
Yeah, that's usually, although I will say a goofball moment is usually short at least, versus like I'm making a character that doesn't fit in with all the rest of the characters.
See, I find goofballs, it's like a reoccurring thing. Like, it might be short, but it happens
It's gonna happen
all
over
the
and over.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That does.
And
that's
like
rough.
again, it happens at home tables where we, like my poor DM for our One Ring game, he keeps referring to everything by the land of Arnor, but all of us are like Arnar every time. Every time we've limited it down, like we could do it once a session. We all can do it at a table, and then it's out. But like those things happen, and that's not being a goofball.
fine,
But like when you build a character who's absolutely off the wall to be off the wall and meant to kind of get under people's skin for no reason,
Yeah.
that's frustrating.
Or just keep breaking character to make those jokes. Like,
Yeah.
I love stuff like that. Like, when your whole table has inside jokes. Like, to me, even if it disrupts the story, like, you're all, like, closer as a group.
Yeah.
Like, and it just makes it better. And even if it's silly. But, just having that one person who's, like, constantly, like, Arner! Like, or, like, I don't know. I can't think of that joke for that right now, but... you're Arsnar. What? I don't know. I can't think of it.
Arsnar.
Arsnar. I was thinking like
Oh, that's a
Ding.
big term.
yeah, I don't know. I'm terrible at these singers right now. I'm very tired. But you know what? You get what I mean.
Yeah.
There's a way to work, I think, with goofballs, and that is your character is now a goofball. Have fun with that. Because, like, I like an in-character inside joke a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's very stupid, but one of my favorite things ever, which I've built an entire character I play with Jason about, is the, like, we both remember Budapest very differently.
Yeah.
That energy between two characters is very fun
Love
for me.
it.
Yeah.
And, like, if you cannot control your weird little goofball tendencies, it's worth just leaning in and making yourself a bard.
Yeah. It's also something that I think a table needs to have an explicit conversation about.
Yes.
Not implied, not suggested, not, swept under the table, but for instance, we just started today the Spelljammer campaign, right? Spelljammer can get very weird and silly, and I had to talk to the group. I'm like, look, it can be silly. Also, we're playing circus carnival performers, right? Like, I want to make sure we're all making creepy circus characters and not silly circus characters, right? Like, that is, but that brought us all to the same page since it's D&D and we wanted to like do some of the heavy lifting of character creation before the first show. I needed to make sure that we understood the tone and what I was going for. So it turns out that worked well, but it just required like explicitly listing the things I'm trying to hit, like the notes I want to hit in the storyline, so that nobody ends up making Krusty the Clown in with a bunch of contract killers, Like,
I'd watch that.
I would too. But I would not want to play at the table, probably. Unless I was Krusty.
You explore within you the need, like, basically then you have the character explore why do they feel the need to be a goofball.
Yeah.
Like, were you not loved enough as a child?
But usually that player is not interested in that.
Oh, absolutely, but I force it.
Listen, I 100% understand what it is to be the target of the goofball label. Famously, when I made Mr. Clean, and the community roasted me
Unfairly.
horrendously for it, but that wasn't ever my intent, and we'd all talked about it beforehand. That was the thing I had to emphasize to everybody. Like, we sat down at the table before we started streaming, and I said, hey guys, I have this idea. What if we kind of went with the theme of, like, superheroes can get contracts to do ads and be spokespeople for things, and
I like it.
but then it's just the power set happened to line up with cleaning products, and it descended down the line, and I ended up with it as a teenage kid. Like,
Yeah.
that's what the story I was going with, and it wasn't just to be like, hey, I'm Goofy, I'm Mr. Clean, which I could see. Like, I get what it could have been, but that wasn't ever the intent. Even though it definitely could have been wild. I mean, there was also the con game I went to where the GM gave us characters, and we sat down and we were playing GURPS.
For the podcast listener,
Yeah.
Timmy has just brought a Mr. Clean action figure.
Yeah.
It's from the campaign.
I bought it back when we were playing, and I brought it in because I was like,
Now-
marketing.
Now with real scrubbing action.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this con game, we're playing GURPS, we're given characters. I get a character sheet, and the game starts out, and he's talking about it like it's the Wild West. I'm like, cool, all right, Wild West, all right. And I look at my character sheet, and I have stuff like pilot spacecraft and laser beam
Space
gun.
Western.
And I was like, oh, all right, let's do the space western thing. Okay, cool. And we do this investigation around the town for like an hour of con game, which is a significant chunk of the game. And then at some point we have to ride out of town and get stuff. And I was like, can we just go over to my ship? It says I have a spaceship. We haven't needed it yet because we've been in this town. Like, can I just ride over there? And the GM looked at me and went, are you stupid?
Really?
Yeah. And I went, excuse me? And he goes, what? This is the Wild West. And I'm like, yeah, but oh, you shouldn't have that stuff.
He just scratches
And
it
just
off.
scratch it off and didn't give me any replacements or other stuff that I could have had.
That's just bad.
So then I was just
That
this
for the
unarmed
free
guy in the West.
character you gave me.
Yes.
Yeah.
hmm
That's just bad.
And I was like, yeah, okay. At that point, I looked at the other people at the table I knew, and I was like, I'm kind of out.
Yeah.
Everybody.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think Mr. Clean is a good callback because, like, for a masks campaign, it was like a little bit. It did kind of. It would sound like a goofball idea, and you absolutely did not play it that way. Like it was. He ended up being like the heart almost of the game with everybody like having. It was just amazing.
Well, and it still leaned into all the stuff that it was legacy, right?
Legacy,
Yeah.
Like all the pressure that they have to deal with and the being in the limelight and not wanting to be, but this is your heritage. And, like it hit all of those things in a way that was still worth a wink and a nod, but not fucking absurd.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to make a joke of the game.
Right.
I was trying to make a joke in the game,
Yes. Yeah.
which is different.
That's a great kind of delineation between
Yeah.
those two things. I think that's really important. And I think that gets back to what Clara was saying about we remember Budapest very differently. That's a joke in the game.
Yes.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that's like the line for me. I don't mind in-game jokes,
Yeah.
Yeah.
even if they're sort of annoying to the other characters, because that can be like drama gold.
Yes.
Because
yeah.
they're so annoying. Yeah.
That's perfect.
But it also involved, with those characters, Claire and I had a lot of conversations about
Yeah.
oh, okay, you're going to be the kind of the straight man and I'm going
Yeah.
to be the more chill, whatever.
Yeah.
But like you have to work that dynamic out ahead of time and agree that and then let's see where it goes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
before you wind it up and let it go, it has to have some direction.
Yeah. And I'm currently the goofball in one of my games, and I
What?
genuine. VP posted it in the thing. I didn't see it until now. That there is we have one of my in my in my 7th C first edition game. I will fight John Wick in a Denny's parking lot, but a joke has
The
come up.
designer of Seven Seas, not Keanu Reeves.
Hey, please don't, because he says nice things about virgins and
That's
vixens,
true.
so-
Well, that's
know-
why it's Denny's and not Waffle House.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's really just an honor thing now. I've said
You
it
don't
so
start a
much.
fight in a Waffle House parking lot.
And I don't
No.
want to.
Not unless you're ready to finish
Also, where would I find a Waffle House in LA?
it.
No.
Tucson.
Exactly. We're all safe.
The greater Los Angeles area.
Los Angeles megaplex.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is, we have like it. I kind of am playing like the clown character in the space, like very classically clown. I won't get into it, but
But what about your character's feet?
I took my shoes off to run back into a party, and everyone decided that I had giant feet.
Yeah. Like just slapping like those big
So you're
feet.
not playing Crescent Hotel, you're playing
Oh.
Sideshow Bob.
I hate you all. How is this happening to me on a different channel?
And then they're running and it's slap, 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 slap,
But
slap, slap,
can you
slap.
sing the entire score to the HMS Pinafore?
Don't.
Shut up. But the point
But
is,
with big feet like that, you can really keep time.
Hey!
Anyway, the point is, like, it has become a joke because I'm playing this clown character who isn't trying to make silly moments, but just kind of has been, unfortunately, like, making these things happen, and out of character, unfortunately, it's giving me so much anxiety.
Aw.
But it's that thing of like, because you don't want a goofball who's going to take over the space. You don't want a person who's going to pivot the game entirely because they do something absolutely stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of checking in that I end up doing, just like, and we're okay before I do something absolutely goddamn stupid.
Mhm.
And you can watch it live happen on Happy Jacks as well, where I'll do something, I'll be like, I have a stupid, I always preface it. I have
Hear
a
me out.
stupid idea. and
Claire
then I
gets
say, "Hear me
$1 every time somebody says that phrase.
yeah, no. And people owe me royalties for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm embracing it. I
Yeah.
need the money.
See, I've been in a game where I've been not the goofball, but the odd man out in the game. I did a game of
Do you mean Hot Man Out?
well, yes, always. I was doing Star Wars, the Fantasy Flight, over the pandemic, and we built characters for that, and it's playing during the pandemic because pandemic happened. And I built this character who was a descendant of one of the few survivors from Alderaan, because his family was off-world, and it was like during the early Rebellion era. So very, very cool, very excited, very heavy. Did not realize that everybody else had built these madcap nonsense characters, including our friend of ours who was a Wookiee, who was a muscle, who was now a cook, who had an apron that said "Kiss the Wook."
Yeah.
Like that kind of like it
Aw,
was.
that's
It's great. It's
delightful.
very, very good. But I was like, I love this character, but I'm in the wrong campaign,
Yeah.
and it's too late.
Yeah.
I can't not play this character
Yeah.
now. So now I'm stuck, and now I'm the stick in the mud
Yeah.
who's just
Yeah.
angry, and everybody calls us terrorists because I want to avenge Alderaan.
Yeah.
No, I am a freedom fighter. I am not a terrorist. Okay, sure.
That's a DS9 game.
Yeah.
I know.
And I
It was
knew
very
that.
Kira. I was
Kira, yeah.
playing very Kira.
Oh, man.
I hate to say this, but maybe we should have another mailbag.
We got distracted.
It is almost 6.
Oh my god. We started.
We started.
We started first.
Yeah, but that's still what time it is.
All right.
Tell the other people that we're running late.
Mailbag number 2. If someone else would like to read it.
Well, Dave didn't get to read.
Okay.
I already read.
Same.
You got voluntold.
You
Fair-
got
fair
dibs
enough,
on
fair
two,
enough.
I
right?
dibs on 3.
Ah, okay.
One last real quick thing, because we kind of all
Yeah.
focused on the categories of people and,
Sure, yeah.
and how they get
Yes.
show up again. I personally could not sit around and make up not connected backstory bits for what players in my games do, because if I did that, it would instantly merge into what actually happened, and I would be confused and lost.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I could come up with headcanon about the game that I was actually running. Like,
Yeah,
Oh, I try.
that's a lot of work.
I do the
No.
opposite.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, this doesn't shut off because I'm crazy. But like I have to. I mean, obviously, you keep as real of wow, as real of an account as you can. But like, yeah, of course, if someone can't be there, I like, and they get a call and they step out of the room. And they
Yeah,
just,
I try to fill that in at least.
Yeah.
Like, why isn't that character here?
Sure, in that case, but like, I don't know. It sounded like it was like adding motivation to something that happened in game, not like they weren't there or they got busy or something had to step out or whatever. It's like, oh, a character in my game made a choice and something happened and it was a little weird, and so I filled in the dots
I kind of like
of a
it, though.
constellation.
Unless it was like I would ask ahead of time, like, "Hey, Dave, did you choose to do that because of this cool backstory thing, or were you bored and you felt like
Well,
blowing
yeah,
it?"
if it's a
Yeah.
discussion with the player,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
but
I-
like if I just did it in my head to make it gel better,
Yeah,
I
I'd go
would
crazy.
then end up being like making callbacks to weird shit that I made up.
Yeah,
And
I'm in
characters
the
would get
habit
confused.
in that
Gaslight you.
situation. I'll be like, hey, can we say that maybe this happened because your character did this, and like,
Sure.
can we all be on the? Does that sound fun to everybody? Just because in my head canon, like, if nobody else knows, it's not in the story.
Yeah.
No, it's
right?
true.
I learned that from Claire. So
Secrets are made to come out in games, or else
Yeah.
why do you have them?
Yeah, exactly. That was just
Thank
fanfic
you.
that nobody ever.
Yeah.
I write so much fiction. Okay.
and that's okay too.
Yes.
Yes.
Probably keep it to yourself mostly, but like,
Or don't.
Or don't.
don't.
Well, I'm just saying if you do keep it, like, it doesn't matter. It's just, if it's only headcanon
Yeah.
and nobody at the table knows, then it doesn't matter to the
It
story.
doesn't make
Yeah.
a sound.
Right.
And I want it to matter is my point, is I want you to say something to your players, not chastising somebody for having headcanon. Just let it be part of the story too. You have an idea about the story. It's a collaborative scenario. Ask if it could be that. You know, like, that's, what if it's this?
Yeah. I'm not saying don't go for it if it works for you. I'm saying, for me, no way. Like, if I made up stuff like that and didn't,
You heard it here first. Dave says, go fuck yourself.
that's right.
Not for the first time.
Yeah.
Hell no, it's not. Mailbag number 2. Go fuck yourself.
Dave's
Somebody please
catchphrase.
clip that for later. I just need that for later. I'll save it
For reasons.
for reasons.
Hello, Happy Jackers. A recent conversation on the forum has stirred up a couple of questions in my ADD-addled brain. And like a child with a bag of candy right after Halloween, that brain refuses to put them down. What started as a question on how Dungeons and Dragons differs from early wargaming morphed into a thread about how table culture spreads, and games as folk art. One contributor, Gwen, pointed out correctly that live stream play has changed how people learn about games and table culture, for sure. On the whole, I think this has been a positive thing. My own travels through Grognardia are part of the reason I left the hobby in 2005 and only came back during the pandemic. Streamed plays, I think, have created a much lower barrier of entry for people and have allowed many different kinds of people to enter the hobby because they did not have to deal with the grognards at the gate. Still, I do think there is some value to person-to-person spread of the hobby. One of the reasons that I could embrace it as fully as I did was that a lot of my early introduction came from my older brother and offered a fun way for us to connect. Obviously, this still happens. But my question is, do you feel like anything valuable has been lost in the current landscape of live streams and APs? A related discussion developed around TTRPGs as folk art. I agree with Kimmy that TTRPGs in general are a form of folk art. However, do massive actual plays still constitute folk art? Critical Role in all their media tie-in glory being a prime example. I think the question comes down to if we are thinking of form or content. Critical Role has a related, if not altogether equal, form to what we do at my home table, and if that's what makes it folk art, then Critical Role definitely falls into that bubble. If we talk about folk art spreading organically through channels created by the people who practice the art, then maybe not so much. Still, there is a lot to unpack there. Big APs could not exist without the pre-existing folk tradition. Still, I have met people who listen to APs and do not play games. I'm interested in all of your thoughts. Stay happy, stay Jackie, and please do drink the beverage of your choice. Sincerely, Carlos Makes Games, a.k.a. Carlos from Detroit.
Thanks, Carlos.
I've been summoned.
Well, first off, I totally agree that actual plays have changed the way the hobby looks to a lot of people.
First off, people get to see it.
Sure,
Yes.
sure. In mostly good ways, I agree, but some ways I have encountered some players that's the only way they have to think about games. And actual plays, as much as anything, are performance art. And when you're playing in a group just around a table, it's more about the story than it is about the performance, usually. Because not everybody that plays these games is a trained actor, right? I know I'm not. Everybody's heard me try and remember to do a voice, and it fails after 2 episodes, right? Like, I am terrible at it, but it's something that I have definitely changed the way I play when I'm playing on a stream. And it's a different experience.
Yeah.
And it's not bad, it's just I am always conscious that there is an audience and that they are listening to this as a piece of performance art, not as just a bunch of friends actively playing a game. Because they're not getting to roll the dice, and they're not getting to make a character, and they're not doing that. They are listening to us do that. And some folks that listen to a lot of APs, or if that was their doorway into the hobby, I have seen that they kind of treat it always as performance art and not as just getting together with friends and playing a game.
For its own sake.
I
For
can see
yeah.
that.
I have a ancillary question. As somebody who is training to be a librarian and learning about categorizing things and thinking very deeply about what type of information something is, aesthetically, I'm happy to consider, if somebody hands me something and says, this is art, I made it, okay, but I feel like I can reserve the judgment of whether I think it's good art, right? But I don't get to say it's not art.
Right.
Okay, so from that point of view, I don't know what folk art is meant to mean, and I wonder if from our folk performers, whether you could say something about what makes something folk art.
Claire has her hand up.
I went to school for this. Upsettingly. This is what one of my double minors is in. And I did also just look it up. Because art is pretentious, we have two categories, fine art and folk art. A lot of time you can also have things that are like subcategories of that. Essentially, folk art is rudely art white people didn't make up. So D&D does not count. That's not true. What it is more so is folk art is often popularized and performed by people who are not professionals.
Okay.
In that, like, the mediums are made by people who are not professionals. So, like, textiles are often considered folk art because, everyone does textile. Like, a lot of people learn to do textile art, but quilts are folk art because you don't do that big formal training thing to make quilts in the same way you do learn to oil paint.
Sure.
So, unfortunately, the answer is pretension makes things not folk art.
And a lot of how it's taught and passed down.
Yeah.
So folk art generally is passed between generations, or someone teaches someone else. And like you were saying, like you can't go to, there's not usually a school for it.
Yeah.
Like for like the folk music we do at fair, that's my like closest touchstone and like sewing and stuff like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, like, it's interesting to, and I have talked to people within the last like year about whether or not like TTRPG actual play counts as folk art because it is popularized by modern media. It is popularized by popular media with people who are actors. So is it collaborative storytelling with acting? And like there's this push within the TTRPG actual play community about trying to get recognized by outside sources. Kimmy and I and Aaron go up our own asses about this constantly. Where it's like there are being legitimized as performance art in whatever way we can. Is it worth it? Why do you do it? And also, do we count? And having these, so like, this is a conversation that is actively happening all the time in my brain.
Is a podcaster a performance or a folk artist?
It depends, but yeah, kind of.
I mean, the act of podcasting.
It depends on the podcast because collaborative storytelling is almost, first of all, oral like storytelling is one of our oldest folk arts. But then like it could happen here, or like Behind the Bastards is just a podcast that's an informative thing. So do you consider that to be art?
Right,
Or journalism.
Yeah,
Yeah,
journalism.
like if I'm interviewing a baseball player after a match, a game. It's a game.
A game, I think.
Yeah. But
Sports.
if you're doing like an audio drama, that might count as something that's like folk art. And it's interesting because for me, I think TTRPGs are very much a folk art, but actual plays are a separate piece. So maybe actual plays aren't folk art. But then to me, again, it goes back to my touchstone, and this is kind of one of what we're talking about in the Discord of folk music. So it's like, okay, Celtic Women sings folk music, but they also sell like $1 bajillion worth of CDs to people at like paper, like whatever those like those commercials we all see are. They fill these big stadiums. Dropkick Murphys are an example of someone who got popular, and they do original stuff too. But they also still do like traditional Irish music. So it's like they're folk musicians. But so that was kind of my thoughts when you're talking about like Critical Role and Dimension 20 versus a lot of others who aren't quite at that level. But again, like it is a perform. Like I'm much more ambiguous on the concept of APs being folk art as absolutely, I believe I will fight people in the Waffle House parking lots.
Holy shit.
I am serious
Road to
about
Tucson.
TTRPGs being folk art for sure.
So it seems like a distinction might be that a folk art is something, like you said, it could be like taught by somebody, like by a peer, and not necessarily need a lot of special training or certifications.
It's not available. Even if it takes a bunch of special trainings and all this extra knowledge, there's not generally a course for it.
Yeah, okay. And then professional art or fine art or whatever is different from that because you can go to fashion school or you could go to painting school or whatever. It seems like from that point of view, I would have said like Critical Role, that level of production, even our level of production here is not available to most people. And I thought, oh, well, okay, maybe that makes APs fine art. But now lots of people can do a Zoom call and stream on Twitch and do an AP, which is the content of which can be identical to what we do here. And then is that folk art or fine art is an interesting question to me.
Yeah.
Is it... Oh, no, please.
Oh, I always make a division between folk art and performance art. And folk music can be performed, but the performance is performance art. The music itself can still be a folk art piece, and it can be that style. And just with APs, like, it is a performance, and those scale from, some folks that do a Zoom call and stream it to Taylor Swift, right? Like, it is all a performance.
That's
in
not
one
me
way or another.
shitting on the Zoom call games, by the way.
Not at all.
Everyone's doing what they got, and that is
Well,
awesome.
I'm just in terms of
Yeah.
scale of the thing is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's interesting you bring that up too, because like if we use the music metaphor, there is a huge difference between playing guitar in your bedroom by yourself or having a jam session with your friends in a garage versus being Taylor Swift. They are both technically doing the same art. The question is now, how are you doing it and at what scale? So I would argue by that metric. Well, this is art. We all know it's art, but
The venue changes.
the venue changing doesn't change the art. The venue changing changes the scale. So, Dimension 20 just played Madison Square Garden is the same as us playing Spelljammer in this room. They just had a bigger budget. It's still it's still what they're doing. They're still
Like, I wouldn't consider it folk art, and I don't think what we're doing is folk art.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
That's kind of where I am. Whereas, like, I think writing a TTRPG is going to be for most people because it's one or two people, labor of love. Maybe you make money on it, maybe you don't. Maybe you have a successful Kickstarter. It's not going to be I don't ever expect to have $1 million Kickstarter. That's okay. We're all passing the same $20 around between all the indie developers. But
again, like just pushing back a little, folk art is folk art not because of how much money you make making a little bit of money. It's because how you learned it. And still a lot of actual play people are learning by word of mouth from other people who do the same art.
No. That's the difference to me is we're in a studio. I couldn't set this up even if I learned from you some basic concepts of sound design and lighting and all these things, but like I can't recreate this on my own, but I can recreate a Zoom call, right? So what I'm saying is like I think this is the difference between Taylor Swift and playing guitar on my YouTube channel, right? Of like this isn't Taylor Swift, that's CR or whoever did Dimension 20, but there's Taylor Swift and there's the other artists before we get to guitar on YouTube.
Yeah.
But I would argue that in that way, I know I don't know how to set this up. But I am still participating, but when I am here, I am still participating in the art in the folk art of playing a D&D game for a performance. Like as a show.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So what my argument is that the scale isn't the question. It is whether or not you're just doing the activity. Because every one of those people who is on the big 2.5, are, they learned to perform somewhere else. Sure, they have formal training, acting, writing, comedy backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come here, and then they turn that to this space. And you can and so they have all of these extra skills that are auxiliary but useful. But we sit here and play game together and give advice on game, that's all passed through word of mouth and just training. And
advice show is a different beast.
Well, but okay, so
in my mind,
the best way, in my opinion, to learn D&D specifically is to have a friend who gets you into D&D.
yes, yeah, agreed.
That's folk art. So
Yeah,
the best way to
but
do
that's
actual
different
play,
from what we're doing.
But here's the thing.
I don't think it is.
I don't think it is.
I think we have to delineate the art of setting up the studio, of lighting things, of sound. All of that is something you can go and get trained on. And same thing about acting or vocal projection. But you can't be trained to play D&D in a classroom. Like, there are some programs that are starting to roll up now, but you can't go to a university and get a degree. Like, my husband has a degree in lighting and directing and sound design. This is so all of that around it is a fine art.
Mm-hmm.
But actually still playing a game is still not something that's come to the level of I can get a degree in playing tabletop RPGs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if that's the litmus,
I mean, I feel like that
Then-
might be where we're agreeing,
Roughly.
and other people will disagree.
that's
you're allowed to also
interesting.
disagree.
No, but I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, because you can bring in a lot of fine art elements to the folk art because you're bringing your own experience, you're bringing everything that you have in
My
your bag
husband's
of tricks.
experience.
Potato.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change the art you're doing. Kind of an example, I would consider drag a folk art.
I think it is.
Right.
Ah.
But so, for example, when I become queen, we're working on it.
Almost
But
like-
I plan on doing live vocals because that's something I know I can do. So I'd be bringing a fine art skill that I have to a folk art performance.
Okay, so so I was going to ask about this example. And I don't mean this to be super silly, but it's what popped in my head. Jeff Goldblum is a very accomplished pianist, right? I think he plays a few instruments. I don't know what all he can play, but if he showed up to Ren Fair playing the mandolin of something, right? He's a professional performer and, very well known, super famous. If he's playing the mandolin on the Rogue's Reef, right? Is that a folk performance or a fine art performance?
He's performing folk music.
It depends on what he's playing. Yeah, if he's
Yeah.
playing, because you can play classical music on a mandolin, and that is a fine art. If you're playing something that you learned,
He's doing sea shanties.
yeah, then that's
That's
a
folk
folk
art.
art.
music.
Yeah, because
Okay.
because that's something that's generally passed down orally or through different cultures and different groups, as part of a culture thing, and you can get degrees in the history of sea shanties or this history of ocean music and things like that, but you can't go get a degree in playing sea shanties on
Right.
Open
Shanty performance
musicology.
degree.
Yeah.
So if I was on Rogue's Reef and I started to sing, the 24 Italian art songs, that would be fine art.
Yeah.
But me seeing Whiskey in the Jar is folk art.
Yeah.
Why would
Okay.
you bring that name into this?
So, but
Trauma.
for me, there is a delineation, and again, it just comes down to performance versus the art, right? So, writing a folk song, playing a folk song with your friends, or writing a tabletop game and playing it with your friends, that's the folk art of it. When you start to perform that art in a public space, that becomes a performance of that art.
Right, but
And I break the performing arts
Into
away
a
from
third
the
category.
art baseline, the foundation art.
I see. So
Right?
for
So-
me, go ahead.
If I'm a person and I have gone through, art center and I have learned to be an oil painter, right? And I am the premier oil painter of this generation. And I'm sitting in a dark little room somewhere with one lit apple, and I'm painting it in such a way that no one will ever believe there were real apples in the future, except for my art, right? That's a fine art skill. Now, if I turn into Bob Ross and I start doing painting to an audience,
Is Bob Ross
I
folk
am-
art or fine art?
I am performing my fine art skill for an audience.
And the
Right.
This
performance
is helpful. I like these examples.
Yeah.
This is helpful for me.
No, but the thing is performance art is a Venn diagram with other types of art.
Yeah.
So you can do performance art
it's
of classical opera, or you
Yes.
can do Rogue's Reef and sing like
Yes.
And
you
they're
know,
both
yeah,
considered
Drunken
singing.
Sailor.
So performance art is neither folk art or not folk art.
Yes.
It is
To me.
just a separate.
The
Yeah.
way I look at
to
it.
Kadave.
Yeah.
You can
I
perform folk
disagree,
art.
but
You can
I'm-
perform fine art.
Yeah.
Okay, well, how would you how would you articulate your
I
disagreement?
disagree because I think I disagree with the premise that actual play performance shouldn't be just considered a performance art. In which case, welcome to fine art, baby. I think that because it's the performance of. I think the things that come into we're multitasking here. Performing actual play is acting, storytelling, folk art, acting, fine art. We're just happen to be doing them at the same time. So for me, the question in the email thingy is about scale. Just because the sound is louder doesn't mean it's not the same sound to me. So I don't think that it is. So I think what we do here is still considered a folk art. But the performance of it, performing art, is a fine art skill.
I honestly think one of the biggest pieces is a lot of people who are doing it aren't necessarily aware of folk art being a thing still. I think we're nerds because we're from the Ren Fair, so a bunch of stuff we do is folk art.
No, not all of us.
Not all
Yeah,
of us.
hold on.
You're right. One of the five.
I'm not a Ren Fair nerd.
Jason is cool, actually.
Yeah.
Jason's studying to be a librarian.
People like
makes
me.
him cooler.
Jason's smart enough to be indoors in
Yes.
April and May.
Yeah, accurate.
Wild.
So yeah, one of the five of us is smart enough not to do Ren Fair, but I think a lot of us think in that kind of folk vibe because we do things like sewing intense costumes by hand, learning songs as people sing them at us.
Stop
because that
looking
seems
at me.
normal. I am very clearly looking between you and Joey.
How would you classify all of it? Now, I don't really have a dog in this fight. I'm interested in it intellectually, right?
Okay.
Where would you classify improv?
Oh.
Which you cannot get a degree in, to my knowledge.
Oh, yes,
You can.
Yeah,
You can major in improv.
improv theater.
Oh.
Okay,
People
well,
go-
that was just my ignorance then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Listen, you can major in clowning.
Yeah, but that clowning, I have respect for.
Also, you can't.
you.
You don't just give a major, but if you think of things like Second City, Upright
UCB,
Citizens Brigade,
But
Groundlings.
but that still feels like amateurs teaching amateurs.
Oh.
No. Sorry, that was really, really dismissive sounding.
I don't take it that way. But what I mean is like, yes, some of them go on to do Saturday Night Live or whatever, but like I can go. There's no qualification for me to go to what is it here in LA?
There's
Groundlings.
UCB
Yeah.
is also here.
yeah, UCB. That's what I was thinking of.
But also no one's stopping you from going to Juilliard except for, I guess, admissions.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean though. Is that there is a selective process to get into Juilliard. I could go take Improv 101 at UCB tomorrow.
But you could argue too that then you go to Cal State Northridge for improv.
I would say a 101 class does not a fine artist make.
I agree, but if I go through their entire program,
Hey, I resemble that remark. Okay.
yeah, that's all. So again, I'm not trying to make a case one way or the other. I'm trying to. I feel like I'm the audience
Yeah.
in this situation. That because I firmly feel like if somebody tells me it's art, okay, I can tell you whether I like it or not. And if you tell me it's folk art, okay. I don't. Why is it important to distinguish the two?
People like categories.
Yeah. As the person who started this conversation with, I'm a librarian and I like categorizing
No,
things.
I'm asking why is it important to you that this is delineated?
Scholarships. I'm almost not joking. Grants are a lot easier to get sometimes for folk artists.
I think
I mean, there's a level of elitism, especially like
1,000%.
if you think of the fine arts.
Yeah. I feel like having it qualified as an art in any way is important. And
Is folk art an upgrade from hobby?
Kind
no,
of.
I feel like they're about the same. Like I'm a hobbyist folk artist.
You can
Like
also be a
I've never
hobbyist
been
fine
yeah, I've
artist.
never been a professional.
Oh, sure.
you
Like if
have.
you're
Well, okay. Making gas money at the Ren Fair, like professional
Hey, and beer money.
and beer money
And
you
beer
got
money.
paid to
on good
perform.
weekends.
You got paid for
Yes, okay. But like there's a difference between like that and what I consider like a true professional.
Sure.
Like me doing it on my weekends while I have a day job is
Sure.
like okay, we can argue a whole different argument about that. But I think it is important to it's definitely not a fine art, but I think it's important to also show that like there's something about folk art to me about passing things down and the oral tradition of it that I find incredibly valuable and important.
Mm.
And so that's why it's important for me to have it delineated as such, especially because I've done a whole bunch of mentoring and stuff in the last year for people who are creating TTRPGs. And they all seem to feel frustrated, like they're missing out on like how to do it right. Like, where do I learn to do this? And it's like we having this conversation right now, how you do that. You try it, you mess up, and you learn from friends who tell you how to do it better. And that's basically the entire way to create TTRPGs right now. So for me to like get it categorized as a folk art so people don't feel as like ashamed and so people realize it's really important for us to share all this knowledge that we get. Like I'm still learning every single day. I was on a panel earlier this week and I was talking about like finance stuff for Golden Lasso Games and Mark Diaz-Truman from Magpie is like, wait, that's how you do your taxes? Don't do your taxes that way, Kimmy. Do it like this. And I'm like, wow, I wish I'd known that like thousands of dollars ago, but it's good to know that moving forward. So it's like literally there's no guidebooks on how to do this. So as a folk art, it normalizes everybody learning this weird way of just like oral tradition or Discord tradition because it's mostly not oral, it's mostly typing to each other.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's why it's important to me.
We basically just pass it around each other, and I think that's really where it gets folk arty.
Yeah.
Because like when you talk about the someone say the word.
The delineation.
Thank you. Of folk music, that is what we usually say is like folk music is culturally passed down from person to person. And to anyone who thinks that TTRPGs aren't part of our culture, I feel like a lot of us, especially as people who are younger getting into the space, like I was raised on TTRPGs. A lot of people were, and a lot of people use that as their credit. Like it's hard for me. Like I understand what the broader concept of culture and heritage means, but like. As a person who will talk about her heritage a lot, my heritage is also like my culture is also learning D&D from my friends' parents when I was in 3rd grade. Like that is part of it because that was them teaching me storytelling. I have family members who are professional storytellers, and I will tell them about my games and we will have these conversations and it is the same kind of energy as she has when she tells Anansi stories. Like that's like this is culture. This is our culture now. So
Oddly enough, I've run many actual plays and I've been in many more. I do not in any way consider myself a TTRPG artist.
you don't have to.
Not even a little. Like that is the farthest from what I would define myself as. Like I'm just a person that likes to play them.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
Honestly, healthier, probably.
I mean, maybe, yeah.
All right. Mailbag number 3.
Yes,
Jason, you
yes.
wanted to read this one?
I reserved this specifically. I'm going to read it without interrupting myself like I normally would. But I want to say, I think this was from a comment I made in 2018.
Okay.
So and I've evolved on this, right? So it's really interesting and I'm excited to talk about this. So, greetings, Jackers. Recently, season 22, episode 13, someone said, "Do not play D&D for 2 people. It won't work. To thee I say, a pox on your head, for thou art a coward in the face of a beast." But in all seriousness, that is bull. For the last almost 2 years, I have been part of and ran multiple D&D 5e games that have been almost exclusively 2 players. And what I've discovered is that the story is more meaningful. The adventure is higher risk and higher reward. And most of all, it's easier to play. There's no waiting on 5 people to show up all at once. There's no having to find a place big enough to play. Small games are amazing. Not better than big group games, not worse, but saying that you shouldn't run small group in D&D is the lazy way out. If you as the DM can't figure out, 10 kobolds against a fighter and a cleric, maybe I should change that, then the problem isn't the system, it's with the person running it. 5e is easy. Running a game is a challenge in any system, but running a game well isn't limited to games outside of D&D. Rant over, Drail88 out, at PS if this gets read, and not the success story I sent before I give up. Y'all heathens only want nightmares and despair. JK, love you all.
Wait, did we get their success?
Who knows? This was in the before times.
Yes.
Okay.
I have no memory of this place.
I mean, now that we're on season 35, if we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah.
We have.
So
We don't do a season a year, right?
No, it's like 1.5.
I'll totally do a season a year.
No.
I've not been doing this for 35 years.
I can't. This
Like
confuses
yourself.
me every time. So we're on season 35. I was like, this show can't be older than me.
No, it's not.
So I want to say, I bet this was me 7 years ago.
Possibly, yeah.
I bet I said D&D is not good because it requires a party of 4 at least, and blah blah blah. And I think that was lazy. I have come a long way around on, and again, I said this during our Spelljammer game today. We're not shilling for D&D. Wizards of the Coast makes mistakes. You don't have to go buy their stuff.
Please don't.
Hasbro can eat a bag of dicks, right? They're doing all kinds of AI bullshit. I'm not saying go buy this stuff. What I'm saying is Dungeons & Dragons absolutely can play 2-player. And I'm sure I was stuck in the PBTA is everything or whatever. I wrote one the year after this. So, or I was probably in the process
You
of
were in the
making
process,
demigods
yeah.
already. And I felt like Dungeons & Dragons was really limiting, and it's not. It's not. It has a lot more options. And again, the reason I was trying to explain to Kimmy, the reason I want to run a Dungeons & Dragons campaign on Happy Jacks, where we're not really a Dungeons & Dragons community, is I think D&D is fine. And if somebody is asking about the hobby just out of the blue because they saw it in Stranger Things or whatever, and they're like, hey, can you run D&D? And you're like, yeah, how about Trophy Gold? Like, Trophy Gold's weird as fuck. I love it. It's really good, but it's weird. And everybody understands D&D because all modern video games came out of that. If you have played any video game or any, most board games, if you have health in a game, that came from Dungeons & Dragons. That it's just baked into so many things that are automatically accessible to a lot of people, and run a campaign for them. Be fluent in D&D, and then trick them into playing the next game, right? Move on to another system later. Well, as soon as they go this is pretty fun. I get why people like it, but I wish it could fill in the blank. Well, have I got the game for you, right? Because we can do that. Let them try to homebrew something. Let them customize a home rule, right? Of what if we did critical hits like this? Okay, sure.
So, going back to the email, what would you do to make D&D good for 2 players?
Well, like they said, if they can't figure out how to put 10 goblins up against a fighter and a cleric, you need to level scale, right? You need to scale the encounters for the adventurers who are there, right? If it's a fighter and a cleric, don't give them a bunch of ranged, that you would need a ranger and a wizard for, right? You tailor the campaigns, you give them stories that are compelling. But, most exciting TV shows are about 2 or 3 main characters, not a whole ensemble of 5 or 6. Sure, there are plenty of good shows that are an ensemble, but most are not because it's expensive. And so we're also used to seeing smaller core casts. And yeah.
It's funny, when I was reading this, I was thinking 2 people like the GM and a player.
That's also what I was thinking.
Yeah. So do you think D&D works for that situation too?
Sorry, can you say that
a
again?
GM and a player.
Oh, well, I think it can. Yeah. If you design the things around them, then yeah. And in chat, somebody's saying, don't let them homebrew stuff unsupervised. that's okay. Let them break stuff and see the downstream problems, right?
Fun.
Like, let them understand, like, oh, right, if I just double the amount of hit points everybody gets, oh, shit, yeah, that's broken. And now I understand what that means,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Well, yeah, there's value in letting someone break your game a little bit just to see what happens, and that's not me shilling for Big Goblin. I am,
Big
but you know.
Goblin is very good.
I've often referred to D&D as sort of the lingua franca
Yeah.
of our hobby, right? It
Mhm.
is the thing that most everybody has some experience with. I don't think I've ever met a player that is completely in the dark about D&D. I find it fascinating. I would like to meet someone. So if you're out there and you've
You're
never
listening to a TTRPG podcast.
Yeah.
well, but maybe
Well, hey,
you're a person that
Look, it
came
could
in
be
with
the TRPG Encino Man.
No, look, I got to
Right.
college having played half a dozen different RPGs and never touched Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so I was like 20 years old, and I'd been playing for 8 years.
Wait, what did you start with?
Shadowrun. Shadowrun
Wild.
First Edition, 1989, baby.
And he's
Wild.
still rolling dice to this day.
Yes.
It's
And then I played Palladium and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and GURPS and Hero and, all these other games because I like sci-fi stuff and I hadn't read Lord of the Rings. That's another shocker for a lot of people. I didn't read Lord of the Rings until the movies were coming out, and I was like, I should probably read the book first.
I'll be fine.
Okay.
I'll be fine.
But my point is, I wasn't a fantasy super fan. I was doing a bunch of other stuff, and I was aware of D&D enough to know that it used levels and classes, and I was used to point-buy systems, and that felt so much more flexible and what do you mean I can't pick up a sword and swing it? Like, well, you're not proficient. Like, it's a piece of metal. Like, I pick it up and swing it. Like, okay, -10 to your hit. Like, what? So that was my experience with that. As
you're a
Like-
rare flower, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, I would truly like to speak with someone who's never played D&D and doesn't have even exposure to it, because there's got to be people out there.
They are.
There's got to be
Yeah.
people
Most
that
of them I'm related to. They hate me.
But if they've played any video game RPG, there are similar concepts. right?
Sure,
If you've played World of Warcraft, there are a lot of similar concepts.
Sure.
It's it is the lingua franca. I think is the right way to describe it. Right, it is baked into so many games today. Even if it's I'm doing this because I don't like that D&D does it. Right. Like in my book, look, I made an RPG called Demigods, and I'm talking about it. I actually made the comment in there like, I played a bunch of games. Some of these I like. Some of these were added to the what not to do list, right? Shadowrun, love you, baby, but
Listen, your first relationship's always messy.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
To that end, if someone has only ever played World of Darkness games and never touched D&D,
Yeah.
I want to meet you.
Yeah.
I think we would be friends. I don't know why. I just want to know.
A lot of people started with World of Darkness. It brought so many
Yes.
new people,
Yeah.
especially women, into the hobby.
See, I know they're out there. That's why I
Yeah.
want to meet them.
Vampire, werewolf, changeling, and mage brought a lot of people in.
And like
for
Mummy
sure.
and Promethean. And
Well, no, I know, but those weren't as popular.
Absolutely not. Yeah. No one plays this game.
No one plays Geist.
I just
Poor Geist.
I just really kind of want to meet someone who's just WAD only. I want to know what that looks like.
Mhm.
That seems mean, but I am
I
curious.
I knew someone that was that, but it was ages ago,
It's just a strange concept.
long before the glut of RPG choice we have now.
Yeah.
They've got it to Chopor now.
Even if you've only played board games, there are components of most board games that port over, right? That you can understand. Well, like you understand taking a turn, right? You understand asking questions, talking about what's happening in the game, understanding the rules. Even that level, which hopefully applies to all games, is like there is something that people can use. My shock was chatting with someone I used to work with, and they're like, "Yeah, we didn't really play games growing up." Like, well, what did you do?
How do you establish dominance over your siblings?
Right. Yeah. They didn't play board games, didn't play card games, don't enjoy playing them now because I'm like, huh.
running and throwing stuff at each other.
We're very different people.
What do you think games are?
Yeah, without purpose.
Yeah, it was.
Uninstigated.
Oh,
Yeah, they were
Oh,
either
never.
reading or doing
Look
chores
at you
or
people with siblings.
you
Who
can
needs them?
you can beat
Yeah.
up the neighbor kids.
it was wild. And this person's only like 10 years older than me, not like ancient. So
But back to the topic of two-person RPGs and playing D&D. I once dealt with that. An ex that of someone I was dating, we bonded over RPG. Shocking. It seems to be a pattern with me.
ew, gross.
That's easy.
Yeah, this actually is not Adam. It's someone else.
Well, you said an ex.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
he's technically my ex-boyfriend. He's my husband.
Did you break up before you got married?
I'm not going
do
to tell you.
that?
What.
He's still your boyfriend.
I don't tell that's any of your business.
I don't.
Anyway,
So what was your point?
this ex of mine tried to run like a one-person D&D game with me, and it was just so incredibly awkward. I realized that like I need people to bounce off of.
Sure.
Like I like having the spotlight, but I like sharing and throwing the spotlight. Having the spotlight just on me felt weird. It felt weird and inappropriate.
Because you wanted to be able to steal the spotlight from someone.
Right,
and you
yeah. If I
when
can't, yeah, if there's no one to steal the scene from, I can't steal the scene.
I'm not saying it on the air.
What?
You can't say that and then like I'm actually looking right now for like a TTRPG that Sam and I can play. Sam's my
Write it
partner.
down.
And something that we could do like some sort of like two-person journaling, something we can do because it's hard for us to get time to sit down together because we have a young child.
Oh, so if you could play asynchronously.
Yeah,
then-
so it's like we can pass a notebook back and forth or
Interesting.
something like that, or like a Google Doc or something like that. So we've been looking for something like that. So there's lots of stuff out there, and I know, yeah, there's lots of things. Will you two stop it?
Sorry,
Like,
we're
I'm
fine.
so sorry.
you're very distracting, and if you're not going to share,
No,
Keep it to
Joey
yourselves.
can say it. I just want Joey to say it on the internet, not me.
okay.
I will not.
Okay, moving on from that. Yeah, I think that, running for one or two people comes down to, do you feel comfortable staring at each other for the 3 hours that you're doing this activity? I would also feel awkward about that. I'm like, I also like being the center of attention all the time. So like, that's kind of fun, but also who do I steal the spotlight from? You know?
Okay, now I'm gonna say it because now two people have said they like the spotlight cuck. Anyway, there's this.
Yeah. I am what I am.
I have.
Continue.
I'm trying. I have friends who I know play like solo games with not solo games, but like they'll play games together one-on-one, like a D&D. But and I don't understand it, but also like something deep in my heart's like I kind of want that. Like it sounds really nice. But also I get really weird when like I also need someone to bounce off of and have that. But you know what it's like? Yes, it's you. Is message boards.
Oh,
Like message board RP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you can do it long distance text,
Oh.
maybe that.
Where are my mushers at?
No,
Any other mushers?
it's not a mushroom.
I'm very old.
But like
The Iditarod? Like,
Nope.
Yeah.
It's the same tech.
Yeah.
It's the same tech as
Yeah.
the Iditarod.
Yeah, it's a bunch of wild, wound up huskies.
And you tie a note to their neck and you
Yeah.
hope that they find your friend
Yeah.
in the wilderness in the snow. That's
Good.
how those games used to work.
But like the journaling games where you have there's tons of duo journaling games. They are all sad. I dare you to find one that is not deeply sad.
If you have some, go find Golden Lasso Girl on Blue Sky because I literally asked this question earlier today. You can reply with like
they're
your
all
suggestions.
sad.
Yeah. I'm
I
happy sad.
I have a couple, but they're all aggressively sad.
All of mine are about sad robots and the human who finds them.
Oh, yeah.
Some of them are like the world is dying, but you're trying to save music.
Right.
Like it's all sad. You own a lighthouse and you're in love with like a Selkie or something, and for some reason you're not together. Anyway, it's all sad. But the point is, it also sounds kind of nice.
Yeah.
But like that's kind of the text, the analog version of, text RP with your friend. And I guess if you want to roll shit, you can.
Yeah. I would think that going back to the original question of D&D specifically, like it can be done. I still don't know if I agree with with Jason that it should be done, but I also think that it would require.
I'm not saying it should or shouldn't.
Okay, it can be done. You're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, I just think that it would take a lot of adjusting and a lot of knowledge of the system, because I'm going to bring up the point that I think you made X number of years ago. Gosh, that was a long time ago. That the game is optimized for a party. Like,
Well,
as is, especially if you're playing like an adventure path or something, it's going to be like, this is built for this. So you are going to have to do the maths, and you're going to have to, like Jason was saying, like very specifically create the combat situations. Or you can play it like us and just not have very much combat ever. Not calling all of you out, but a sort of or, you know, just make sure that you have that in mind ahead of time, especially if you're playing a pre-written adventure.
yeah. And this is probably what 7 years ago me was thinking, where in the DMG, the Dungeon Master's Guide, the advice is, here's how to tune a combat for 4 players. If you have 5 players, do this, right? And it's like, this monster is worth this many points, and here's the calculator, and here's how you can build an encounter. And that's fine. And like you said, yes, if you're running an adventure path, if you're trying to play Strahd with 2 players and you don't mod any of the encounters, you're going to be sad.
I want to do that now so bad.
But as long as you mod the encounters, it's fine. And I think that's what me back then was like, oh, and you can't mod anything. Like, it is more flexible than I gave it credit for. And that is where I'm in conversation with me from the past. Yeah, I take this point really well.
Yeah. All right.
I'm reminded a little bit as our little cap of when you said at the beginning, like, we all very out of hand go like, oh, D&D, and whenever someone asks us if we want to play D&D. And back when the was it OSR? I don't know. When all of us were boycotting D&D for the millionth time, my favorite was someone's take where they were like, and now everyone acts like this is the perfect time to introduce them to the game where 4 of us control a fish with a knife, which is 1,000% the energy I bring to any situation where everyone's like, oh, D&D. I'm like, have you considered the one where we turn out all the lights and pretend to be skeletons who are dead?
That is a delightful game.
It
Yeah,
is a
it's
very good
fantastic.
game.
Yeah.
I've done all of my checkoffs. I'm finishing with the Jason Morningstar game as my
Yeah, one of the
Last trope.
top-notch Jasons. I've gotta say.
Oddly, I played tabletop RPG stuff with my wife before I got involved with Happy Jacks. After I got involved with Happy Jacks, she's out. She's like, no, I'm not. No, you guys are all like doing that, like all professional and stuff. Like,
Well,
Not
I
my-
had friends
not my
that did it
thing.
recently too.
I have friends
Yeah.
who accuse me of it a lot.
I was so my home table started doing a Deadlands game, and someone came in who was friends of ours who don't really play it with them often, and I just happened to have a really good one-liner zinger. It was very good. I was very proud of myself. And he was like, "How did you come up with that so quickly?" He was talking to my friend who was running. I'm like, I just felt so out of my element because everybody was so quick and so good. Like, well, you don't understand. Like, Joey does this once a week for months. Like, he's done this a lot. Professional actors, like it's a lot of stuff that we just have.
Yeah.
Again, those fine art skills we bring to this folk art, and he just doesn't have that. Like, it's fine that you're not quick on the trigger. Like,
Yeah.
but he
Well,
was
you don't
apparently
have
super
to be.
intimidated about it. Like, I'm sorry you feel that way. I don't know how to not do that.
Yep.
But you would be like that if you were just a regular improv artist who like if you never did Happy Jacks but you just did brief stuff, we would be like that. And I think that there's a huge that's a problem. This is gonna be a weird poor streamer problem where we're like, I keep home games that are offline because they keep us normal. Kind of.
Well, and I think that's normal for literally anything. If anyone who tries something new for the first time, like I've coached swimming, I've coached like so many different things that have nothing to do with TTRPGs or performance of any type. Someone coming the first time to do a thing with people who've done it a lot before, it's intimidating. It doesn't matter how good you are at the thing, or especially if you haven't really done it. Like, it's just scary to start new shit and be with new people you don't know well. Like, I am always terrified in those situations.
Yeah.
I always overcompensate for it. Like, it's just like a scary situation. I think people feel that a lot more when it's like an intimate thing, like with like 4 or 5 people. But I think it's a natural human reaction that people tend to feel compounded when someone is really good at something.
And it cycles back to what Dave was saying when we were talking about art in general, which is that like, I played tabletops differently for stream, and it's a thing that I talk about when people ask me about getting into streaming. They're like, well, what is the one of the first things I say is like, it is not the same as playing a game with your friends, because it's not. At the surface level, I've never played a Battle Master on a stream because no one wants to watch me stare at a battle mat for 45 minutes picking the best move and then playing other people's turns. That's not fun for anyone. It's very fun for me, which is why, so like you have to think faster, you have to move faster, so you play the game differently. And it's just yeah.
Although I will say the flip is the conversion is true as well, that I come to home games, I'm a better listener now. I am better at playing off of other people's ideas because I had to be, because if we crosstalk here, it sounds like ass, right? And I got really aware of that over the years of doing this. And so I am a better player at a table now too. I'm not saying you should do this live to be a better player, but it is interesting that these skills, like, I think it would be good if people at the table didn't have too many side conversations, because you're going to miss what's going on with them. And then you're going to go, wait, oh, they're behind the rock now? When did that happen? Like, well, when you were talking and showing them TikTok, like, you know, like, let's be in it. And like at this table, I go a long time without looking at my phone.
Wild.
At home, I might glance at my phone more often. You know, like that. What's that?
No, it's fine.
I found I'm the exact opposite.
Oh,
I'm much worse as a home player now
Really?
because I am just all over the fucking place.
huh.
It's like you have taken all of the strictures of doing the performance part, like I've been saying, off. And then I am just... You have unlocked that whole part of my brain that just wants to make bizarre jokes and all of that. Like, it's rough.
The audience keeps
I have
tame.
actively pissed off Stork lately a lot
Oh no.
because of just how off the chain our whole table has been getting. Like, we get together and it's like, yeah, and then Stork is
Okay.
like, can we play the fucking game? Like, we only have a couple hours. Let's do something today.
Stork is also just a grumpy puss now.
If you
Like,
get
I'm
him
just
mad
gonna
enough,
say,
Well, yeah, but he always was a level of grumpy.
yeah, but more grumpy now, and also it's you and Tim at the table.
No, not anymore.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's you and Rob. Worse. Worse.
it.
Worse.
I was gonna say Stork is all. If you get his Stork grumpy enough, he'll write in to the show as a nightmare.
No, he won't.
No, he won't.
No.
No, he
No,
won't.
he'll make fun of you in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll hear about it at the Reef.
We'll hear about it at the
Right.
Reef. Oh God, that's happening soon.
Yeah, sure is.
All right. Are we done?
I think we're done.
I think we wrapped it.
We won.
We won.
We won.
We won the advice show. Actually,
We won this folk fine performance art.
I forget how much I like this seat.
Yeah, it's a very good seat. All right. Thank you for joining us for season 35, episode 2 of the Happy Jacks RPG podcast. Thank you to our chat mod, James V, and to our amazing Patreons who keep us ad-free and independent. It's because of you that we don't have to do ads or shill. It's great. And you can join their amazing ranks at happyjacks.org/Patreon. Please remember to write into the show either at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com or at the mailbag channel on our Discord, which is happyjacks.org/Discord. Tell us about your favorite current RPG system and why it's your favorite. And my name is Kimmy. You can find me at Golden Lasso Girl on Blue Sky and a few less social media platforms now. Or you can find me at goldenlassogames.com. That's the games that I design and make.
I'm Kadave. It has been a pleasure crowding in here at the last minute. But you can find me on Blue Sky also at CA Sith Lord, and on Twitch at CA Sith Lord, where I have begun streaming the Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, because it felt like a good time to spend time punching Nazis. So I'm doing that, and it feels real good.
Yeah.
And Lord, the game is gorgeous, just beautiful. Just it's a win.
Awesome. I'm Jason. Also, I got to add to thanking James V. James V has been on duty for straight up like 7 government hours. Okay, like the way that the afternoon game lined up with this week was just like contiguous. Like, thank you. That's a week of hours. So thank you for that. You can follow my stuff on Blue Sky and Twitch at It's Probably Okay. I stream on my channel video game bullshit and some game design stuff. So, you can check that out there. And just today, we started a new Dungeons & Dragons campaign here on Happy Jacks called The Astral Circus. And it is a Spelljammer campaign set in the events following Baldur's Gate 3. So, it is not going to interact with a ton of it, but we are in astral space. Lae'zel is in astral space, dealing with Vlaakith. So, that is going to be a component of our story.
Obsessed. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's fine. Yeah, hey, I'm Joey. You can find me on all the socials at Feywild85 or just Feywild if you're feeling lucky. You can find me on the socials talking about absolute nonsense. I'm trying to get more info. I'm going to start posting about Adam and I are doing a fantasy league for the season of RuPaul's Drag Race. So I'll be posting all of the updates on that. Spoiler alert, my team's kicking his ass, and it's great. And yeah, hopefully some stuff's coming up soon on the acting front. But in the meantime, you can find me here every Tuesday playing What About Bob's, our Mouse Fritter actual play, where I am playing Bob Hope, the sweetest little mouse with the biggest heart and the dumbest ass.
I'm mad at you now.
Okay.
I want to be in the league. That sounds like fun.
It is.
I'm Clara. I'm all over the internet as clearly _golden, unless you're into mermaids, in which case my very defunct Instagram is mermaid_clarity. I'm gonna consolidate them at this point. I technically belong to Happy Jacks, but you can also find me around like 3 other studios, including Queen's Court Games and Hallett Haven Studios, doing stuff, especially on Friday nights where we're streaming Changeling the Dreaming. And I'm totally going off type and playing a Selkie, so it's weird. Listen, I didn't get to do it in the Happy Jacks version of it, which also had a Rob. Sorry, one of our players is Rob in our game too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was fun.
All right. Thank you all so much. This week we're going to leave you with a song called Whiskey You're the Devil by a group called the world famous Poxy Boggards. It's not their real name. It's the Poxy Boggards, but they are world famous technically.
It's a very small world.
Very small.
In Milan.
Girl. So you can find them at poxyboggards.com. And we will see you here next week. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
You can hear Stu again.
Oh, whiskey, you're the devil, you're leading me astray. Over hills and mountains into America. You're sweeter, kinder, decenter, you're spunkier than Tay. Oh, whiskey, you're my darling, drunker, sober.
So now, brave boys, we're on the march and off to Portugal and Spain. Drums are beaten, banners fly, and the devils are home will come tonight. Oh, love, fare thee well. With me to the idle doodle da me to the idle doodle da me rakes fall to the laddie. Oh, there's whiskey in the jar.
Oh, whiskey, you're the devil, you're leading me astray. Over hills and mountains into America. You're sweeter, kinder, decenter, you're spunkier than Tay. Oh, whiskey, you're my darling, drunker, sober.
Well, the French are fighting boldly, men are dying hot and coldly. Give every man his flask of powder, his firelock on his shoulder. Oh, love, fare thee well. With me to the riddle doodle da me to the riddle doodle da me rikes full to a laddie. Oh, there's whiskey in the jar.
Oh, whiskey, you're the devil, you're leading me astray. Over hills and mountains into America. You're sweeter, kinder, decenter, you're spunkier than Tay. Oh, whiskey, you're my darling, drunker, sober.
Says the mother, don't you wrong me. Don't take me daughter from me. For if you do, I will torment you. And after death, me ghost will haunt you. Love, fare thee well. With me to the idle doodle da me to the idle doodle da me right full to a laddie. Oh, there's whiskey in the jar.
Oh, whiskey, you're the devil, you're leading me astray. Over hills and mountains into America. You're sweeter, kinder, decenter, you're spunkier than Tay. Oh, whiskey, you're my darling, drunker, sober. Oh, whiskey, you're the devil, you're leading me astray. astray. Over hills and mountains into America. You're a sweeter, kinder, decenter, you're spunkier than Tay. Oh, whiskey, you're my darling drunker soul.